Very good. I hereby call to order this meeting of the Arizona Boxing and Mixed Martial Arts Commission. Today is Wednesday, December 15th, and the time is 11:14 a.m. With those commissioners that are in attendance, please identify themselves and state as to whether they are here via telephone or Google Meets or in person.
This is Joe Pennington. I'm participating by telephone.
This is Scott Fletcher. I, too, am participating by telephone. Item B, our new business. B1 is pursuant to ARS Sections 5-227, 228, and AAC R19-2-C604 for persons over the age of 36. The renewal license application submitted by Mr. Samson Guerrero for a 2021 professional MMA athlete license. Mr. Estrada, will you speak to this application, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Samson Guerrero, obviously overage fighter. He's been competing the past couple of years. His pro record is 2-3. He was last licensed in 2018. Scheduled to have a fight earlier on in the year, but it fell through. Currently, his current weight is 268 pounds. The weight that he's going to fight in or looking forward to fighting is 265 pounds, which is heavyweight. He doesn't see a problem making the 265. His training regimen consists of 3 days a week. He does jiu-jitsu, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, and does road work for 3 miles a day. When I asked him about his upcoming fight, he said he feels good and ready to go. Although he was a late replacement, he still feels very confident that he'll come with his hands raised up. With that said, all his medicals are in, and I recommend that he gets approved.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Chairman, this is Director Vogt. I just want to let the record show that Commissioner Feinstein has joined as well. So you've got everybody.
Oh, terrific. Thank you, Director. Commissioner Feinstein, are you with us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Director and Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I'm sort of right smack in the middle of this COVID surge for Banner Health, and I may have limited time on the call, but I'll stay on as long as I can. So appreciate your patience, and I'm joining via Google Meets.
Perfect. Thank you. We love having you aboard. Understand your time constraints as well. Let's get back to Mr. Guerrero. Mr. Estrada, you recommended approval. There was a noise where I missed what his current weight is. Will you go back to that if you would, please?
His current weight is 268. He has to reach 265 in order to meet that heavyweight. And he sees no problem making the 265.
Perfect. Thank you. Commissioners, thoughts or questions for Mr. Guerrero?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Estrada, when is Mr. Guerrero planning on competing?
He will be competing this Saturday for Rough MMA.
This Saturday with Rough. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions. I think Mr. Estrada did a very good job of lining out the training regiment and the other pertinent aspects. So I have no further questions.
Agreed. Thank you, Commissioner. The chair would be open to a motion if there is one.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant a professional MMA athlete license to Mr. Samson Guerrero pursuant to ARS 5-227, 5-228, and AAC R19-2-C604, being a fighter over age 36. And this would be a renewal license application.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Congratulations, Mr. Guerrero. We look forward to Saturday night.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for joining us. Let's press on. B2 is pursuant to ARS Sections 5-227, 5-228, A, B, and E, and 5-229. A new license application submitted by Mr. Matt Lucas, doing business as MNJ Group, LLC, for a 2022 promoter's license. Mr. Estrada.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lucas has submitted all the required information in order for him to obtain this promoter's license. In talking to him, he sounds very excited to start this new business. And asking him where he's planning to have his events, he elaborated that he's looking to start out on the east side of Phoenix, and he's looking to have 4 to 6 shows for this year, depending if he gets approved or not. Again, he's very excited and looking forward to working with the commission. With that,
Thank you.
recommend that his license be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Estrada. Mr. Lucas, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Promoters are critically important to what we do, and it can be a tricky business. There's lots of different skill sets necessary to do it well, but we always love having new folk come on board and jump into the fray, as it were. Would you take a minute or so and kind of lay out what you're hoping to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I have I've been a previous athlete before. I worked with I was Rage in the Cage. I fought for those guys. I fought on Showtime and the UFC. I used to work with the previous commissioner, Matthew Venezuela, I think. On I used to do some shows and partner, which isn't a bright spot, I know, with Roland Sierra, but before, when he was approved as an approved shows, kind of worked the back end of those shows with him and found out how the promoters really work internally and all that stuff. So I decided to reach out to you guys and do it myself, because I think my past experience and knowing the community, the MMA community, all the schools, a lot of the athletes, I do have counterparts that I'd like to get involved. I think on my application, I've got a couple teammates of mine that are going to help recruit some of the good fighters. I think I can, bring a good aspect to the game on my events. So just kind of my questions were just to learn with this commission what is needed for me to get going. And I'd like to start, as the 2022, with an event. I was talking to Mr. Estrada on dates, but until I got your, approval, I wanted to hold off on that. But, the first thing would be to bring you guys the venues, which I know is going to be probably the first task that I have to overcome, is to find a new venue to do the event at, and then we're ready to go. So I've kind of put some moving parts into place, Commissioner, right now, and just waiting to get the green light and then get everything submitted and get the green light and go forward. So, I have been working on this and thinking about this for the past, 2 years, kind of laid low in the sport to do some personal business stuff on my own. But now that I'm freed up and I can do, it's my background. I've been doing MMA for a long time and been part of the sport, and knowing the Arizona community very well, it just looked like a good fit. So it's kind of a little bit of my background, and the game plan is to start with you guys, get everything signed off, approved, green lighted, and then get you guys the venue and work with you all to get going. So.
Fantastic. Thank you for walking us through it. I think it's critically important to have the kind of background you do have, and we're excited about your future exploits. Mr. Estrada can be a great resource, assuming we get you licensed and moving forward, but we are glad you're here. Commissioners, questions for Mr. Lucas?
Mr. Lucas, have you had any experience in promotion of any sort of activity or event? I mean, as the lead person in doing the promotion?
Yeah, well, I did some events not with Roland in the past, and what I found out that Roland would be putting my name on events I think to get people there, or this is years ago, probably 10 years ago. I did some wrestling and some smoker events by myself at some establishments in Arizona, probably 6-7 years ago. Worked with some local schools and did some events like that. Working with Matt and making sure everything was approved that what we were doing was okay. But probably did 4 or 5 of those myself. Some of the questions I asked Mr. Estrada yesterday on, the marketing and stuff behind it has changed a little bit. But I worked with the commission before, to answer your question, and have done some small events myself, working with schools and stuff like that.
Mr. Lucas, the reason I ask that is I know that you've been involved in the MMA community for quite some time now, and you know a lot of the good fighters and are probably going to be able to put together some very good cards, which is great in and of itself. Yeah. However, in order to be successful in this business, you really have to get, pardon the vernacular, butts in the seats. You've got to get people to the show. You've got to promote the shows well in advance and have a real strategy for doing that. Yeah. In order to be successful as a promoter. We've had some local promoters that, although very good people and they put on very good events, have not been able to perform in getting all of the butts in the seats that they need to. So I'm just mentioning that, wishing you every success, but knowing that really promoting the events and promoting cooperating with Mr. Estrada and the Boxing Commission staff, Boxing and MMA Commission staff, to get all of the paperwork in on time, to get your fighters' medicals in on time, and to do all of that, really then has the commission looking more favorably upon a promoter than one that at the very last minute is trying to get things in and stressing the staff. And we don't have a very deep staff at this time. So your work with the staff, with Mr. Estrada, and whomever else is working with him at that point will be very appreciated.
No, absolutely. And thank you for the question. And one other thing I've done as a promoter is I put together a 5, outside of my experience in MMA was we did a Falcon 5K run, working with the city on permits and all that stuff. But I have done one of those as well, so I've got some experience in different facets of promotions. But absolutely, I will work with the commission and want to make sure everything's tied down before we move forward with anything, for sure. But yeah, thank you for the question.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further comments or questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Feinstein, questions, thoughts for Mr. Lucas?
Just, if everything went according to plan, when would you hope to be able to, what would you target as a first event, roughly?
Earliest February, late March, right between those 2 months.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Lucas, I would encourage you to get out in front of everything. If it is a February type of event, there's obviously a lot of paperwork and a lot of ducks to be herded to get these things to fall together. Mr. Estrada is a great resource. It can help you get everything in line should this all come to pass. And I think Commissioner Pennington made a great point that butts in the seats are critical too. We've seen some great cards watched by very small crowds. It's a great way to get rid of money if you need to, if you do it poorly. So I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you.
I have no further questions either. The chair would be open to a motion if there is one.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to ARS 5-227, 5-228, A, B, E, and 5-229, I move that we grant a promoter's license to Matt Lucas, doing business as MNJ Group LLC, for a new promoter's license for 2022.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Congratulations, Mr. Lucas. We look forward to your coming events.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Look forward to working with
Appreciate your time. Thank you. Let's move on to B3, which is pursuant to ARS sections 5-227, 5-228, A, B, and E, and 5-229, a new license application submitted by Mr. Christopher Cariaso, doing business as Rise Combat Sports for a 2022 promoter's license. Mr. Estrada, will you speak to this application, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Just like Mr. Lucas, Mr. Cariaso is also applying for a new promoter's license. He is a former fighter as well. His experience in promoting consists of him working with promotion with the Muay Thai industry, with the outside sanctioning bodies. He also plans to have 2 to 4 events. He would like to start out with amateurs and move to a mixture of amateur and pros. Mr. Cariaso is actually in the Tucson region, which is probably going to be our first that I recall for MMA, our first promotion that is from Tucson. So I'm pretty sure he'll have a successful run there in Tucson, since he'll be the only one doing MMA shows there. As far as his financials, everything looks good. There's no red flags. And in talking to him, just like Mr. Lucas, Mr. Cariaso expresses, he's super excited. I have been talking to Mr. Cariaso as well, giving him a brief on everything that he needs to do and what we're looking for as far as paperwork and insurances. So with that said, I recommend that Mr. Cariaso's doing business as Right Combat Sports gets approved.
Thank you, Mr. Estrada. Mr. Cariaso, are you with us?
I'm here. How you doing?
Doing just great. Thank you for joining us. Would you just take a minute and describe what you're contemplating, please?
Yes. So my name is Chris Cariaso. I own 2 gyms. I'm a former UFC fighter. You know, we've been promoting shows since for the last 3 years. We've had 11 shows, pretty much Muay Thai shows, and they've all been sold out. So we have a very good reach to audience and stuff. Our plans this year is to hold 2 to 4 shows, MMA shows this year in the Tucson region. We're going to be starting with amateurs and then possibly going to bring on professional fighters and whatnot.
Very good. Thank you. I think Tucson's a great market. I think you can do great things there. I'm surprised that very little has happened down there over the years. This commission's very close to Tucson. I know Commissioner Feinstein went to school there. I spent a large portion of my life there. Commissioner Pennington is there right now. I know Director Vogt has a lot of time spent there too. So Tucson's a special place for all of us, and I'm glad to see what you're considering. Commissioners, thoughts or questions for Mr. Cariaso?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cariaso, you mentioned that you've held 11 events in the past. Where were those?
They were all in Tucson.
So did you have a promoter's license? Did you have approval for the events?
Yes, they were all sanctioned by the USMTA. So we've definitely worked close with Commissioner Bob Carmel, specifically for the Muay Thai events. So we have a lot of experience working with them.
So all of those events were under the USMTA?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Because I was a little bit concerned if you were holding events that weren't sanctioned by the Muay Thai group or by the Boxing Commission.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely wouldn't do that.
And Mr. Cariaso, did you hear my comments or questions to Mr. Lucas about getting people in the seats, etc.?
Yes, we heard that. In our past, our Muay Thai shows have been sold out. Our last show had 1,100 tickets sold, and that was actually on a Sunday day show. So we did a good job for that. you know, we're definitely experienced in trying to get people in the seats, and the market here in Tucson definitely is wide open. So we are excited to get something going out here again.
You're the first miner in the gold field, so I wish you well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Feinstein, thoughts, questions?
No questions for me. I look forward to getting down to Tucson to an event. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, the chair would be open to a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve pursuant to ARS 5-227, 5-228, and 5-229, a new license application for Mr. Christopher Cariaso, doing business as Rise Combat Sports, for a 2022 promoter's license.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Congratulations, Mr. Cariaso. We look forward to your events.
Thank you very much. Can't wait to see you guys.
Appreciate your time. Take care. All right. B4 is pursuant to ARS sections 5-227, 5-228A, B, and E, and 5-229, the renewal license application submitted by Mr. Roberto Vargas, doing business as Iron Boy Combat Sports, for a 2022 promoter's license. Mr. Estrada, will you speak to Mr. Vargas' application, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vargas' application, financial records, rose no red flags. He's good to go. In talking to Mr. Vargas, he hopes, well, he doesn't hope, he already put in for pending this approval. He already put in for 12 or 13 dates. With that said, we've all worked with Mr. Vargas, and as we all know, he puts on good events. With that said, I recommend that his renewal application be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Estrada. Mr. Vargas, are you with us? I take it he's not. Mr. Estrada, you recommend approval, and Mr. Vargas is a known quantity, I think. All of us have been to his events. He's proved himself to be good at putting cards together and butts and seats as well. Commissioners, any thoughts or questions about this?
Mr. Chairman, we've had long experience with Mr. Vargas and Iron Boy Combat Sports. He has done multiple events throughout the years and has demonstrated to be a very good promoter. So I have no questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Feinstein?
No questions from me.
I have none either. I'm just glad to see he's circled back. So that's all good news. Chair would be open to a motion if there is one.
Mr. Chairman, I move that pursuant to ARS 5-227, 5-228A, B, E, and 5-229, that we grant a renewal license as a promoter's license to Roberto Vargas, doing business as Iron Boy Combat Sports. So that would be for a 2022 promoter's license.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Let's jump into our information report. C1 is Boxing and MMA Commission meeting schedule for 2022. Mr. Estrada.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we went ahead and submitted the dates for the new commission for 2022. If there's any concerns or questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and we'll make sure that we try and accommodate your guys' schedule to make sure that our meetings continue as regular.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Estrada. Commissioners, any thoughts or questions about the schedule?
No, Mr. Chairman, I have entered all the dates on my calendar, so we're good to go from my perspective.
I am also reworking my calendar to make sure that I can fit all these in. So thank you.
We appreciate you both trying to make the time. I know it's tricky at times. C2 is our event reports. The following events were paid and approved by the executive director from December 10th, 2021 to December 14th, 2021, with the approval of a new or renewal approval of the 2022 promoter's license. There was a granted request from Rise Combat Sports for approval of an MMA event to be held at the Rialto Theater in Tucson, Arizona on Saturday, March 5th, 2022. Which pushes us towards D, the call to the public. Mr. Estrada, are there folks who'd like to chat with us?
I see no hands risen yet.
Okay. Pushes us towards E, which is call to the commission. Either the executive director or commissioners can raise topics they'd like to discuss. Would anyone like to take the floor?
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask Commissioner Feinstein, given your comment about being in the middle of this COVID peak, if you will, or increase in episodes, what is your feeling about our COVID protocol, and do we need to revisit that? I guess I'm just asking for your opinion on how we should proceed, given that we're having an increased experience.
That's a great question. What we're experiencing, just so you know, that Banner, as the largest provider of healthcare in the state, we have hospitalizations at their highest level of the pandemic at this point, and essentially up to 100% of COVID patients in the ICU are unvaccinated. And so, in my opinion, from a public health standpoint, the precautions that we or any other organization may take relative to distancing or masking or anything else are essentially going to be relatively ineffective as it relates to the population being vaccinated. So I think at this point, what we're seeing is essentially the hospital system in many ways being overwhelmed by unvaccinated patients. And I don't think that this body or any other body really has the ability to influence that or mandate that in a meaningful way. And so I would say at this time, restricting or changing what we're doing in the face of the rest of the community that's not changing anything else either probably is not going to have a significant effect on curbing this current surge.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No, a great question, Commissioner, and thank you, Dr. Feinstein. It's a terrible situation we find ourselves in, but really appreciate your thoughts. Anyone else?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is Executive Director Estrada. Just want to update you guys on some information. I'll probably be requesting a special meeting to approve Bellator MMA. Unfortunately, they were unable to submit their paperwork on time. It's currently at the investigator's desk. I don't foresee no issue, but I am looking forward to scheduling a special meeting to get them approved, as they are looking for a date of January 29, 2022. So that's item number one that I wanted to update you. Item two is regarding the bare knuckle MMA request that we had a couple commission meetings ago. I'm going to request that the lady that brought up the bare knuckle, that she provides us with more detailed regulation paperwork, maybe prepare a presentation for us, for the commission, also describing safety, maybe letters from states that already allow this bare knuckle MMA, and kind of evaluate from that point on. I wasn't very comfortable with the rule set that she submitted. It was very vague. So I'll make sure that I'll reach out to her and maybe we can put her on the next commission meeting for her to explain to us a little more and give us more detail on what she's looking for. Also, the commission's going to continue to monitor unsanctioned events. And like I said before, we will take action against those that have a license with us, either by monetary or suspending their licenses or suspending their medicals if we do determine that individuals are participating in such events. Also, to piggyback on the COVID, we will continue to monitor those numbers and maybe recommend mask usage. But as you heard Dr. Feinstein, it probably doesn't going to do anything, but I just want to make sure that we are not the cause of a spread. So I'll start looking on little things that at least for our commissioners we're able, or our inspectors we're able to protect them or protect ourselves and those fighters to make sure that we're not the source that starts that up. Also, last thing I want to say is, again, Mr. Ironboy Combat Sports, Roberto Vargas has submitted approximately 12 to 13 dates. Those look forward to putting them on here shortly since they got approved. We're also looking at other promotions that are submitting for dates. However, they haven't submitted their renewal packet. So it's already looking like a busy 2022. Just wanted to give you a heads up that it's coming. And for now, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Estrada. A couple thoughts. That's exciting. Bellator's back at us. Hopefully that'll come together. Regarding bare knuckle, please pass along to her our statute. Our statute is pretty rigid regarding gloves, hand wraps, etc., and they have to fit into our statute for us to do anything. So I hate to see her go through an extended presentation without knowing what we require, because those requirements are pretty much in stone. If you just pass that along, I think it would help everybody involved if you would. But
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your efforts.
Mr.
Commissioners,
Chairman,
any thoughts or questions? Yeah.
I have a question related to that, and it's great that the director is on. This is the bare knuckle is one. The one championship is another, where different events or organizations are asking for different rule sets in order to put on events. And I wonder, rather than try to change legislation in order to continue to grow our commission and cast a wider net of events that we could bring to the state and the economy, would it make sense to see if we could introduce legislation that would take that ability to change the rule set and put it in the hands of the commission rather than the legislature, so that every time there needs to be a rule change, either to our existing set of rules, or that we wanted to allow, for instance, a big promotion like One, who just happens to have a different rule set, especially as it relates to weight cutting and things like that, to allow them to be in the state. Would that be a more long-term course of action that might be more practical as it relates to our work?
That's a great question, Commissioner, and I think you make a great point. It can be tricky, in my experience, to get something through the legislature that removes control.
Commissioners,
But,
can I jump in here and just
yes,
remind
please.
you, this is not an agendized item. I would suggest you put this on the agenda for next time to have a discussion about this, but we're getting into more of a discussion than a comment or a summary of events.
You are absolutely right, and I appreciate you jumping in. Mr. Estrada, would you please make this a agenda item for our next meeting?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other thoughts or questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have none.
None from me.
Okay, very good. That leads me to F, the announcement that the next regularly scheduled commission meeting will be at 11 a.m. on Wednesday, January 26th, 2022, and is subject to change based on a quorum. That leads us to the possibility of adjournment. Is there a motion for such?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. We are adjourned, everyone. Happy holidays to everybody, and be safe out there, and we'll cross paths soon. But thank you all for your time. Take care.